Conflicts and humanitarian crises have been a persistent challenge faced by humanity across ages. They emerge in different forms, from wars between nations to civil unrest, ethnic violence, and complex emergencies that combine the collapse of social, political, and economic systems. While each crisis has its own unique circumstances and causes, certain recurring patterns and deep-rooted issues are often at the heart of these disasters. At the root of many conflicts lies competition for resources, whether it's land, water, minerals, or political power. As societies grow and resources become scarcer, tension often rises among groups with differing interests. Historical grievances, inequitable access to resources, and perceived social or political marginalization stack up over generations, forging deep divides that are difficult to bridge. These fault lines can ignite quickly when conditions worsen, such as after droughts, economic shocks, or political upheaval. Another major driver of violent conflict is identity politics. When ethnic, religious, or cultural groups feel excluded or threatened, divisions solidify and hostile narratives take over. These dynamics are often manipulated by those in power. Political leaders sometimes exploit fears, using rhetoric that amplifies an us versus them mentality, leading to polarization and eventually to acts of aggression. In numerous conflict zones, from the Balkans in the 1990s to the more recent crises in Syria, Yemen, and South Sudan, such scripts have tragically played out again and again. Modern conflicts are rarely limited to armies battling on open fields. Instead, they entangle entire societies. Civilians are now more likely to be directly harmed than combatants. Houses, schools, hospitals, and basic infrastructure are destroyed or rendered useless, leaving millions without access to life's essentials such as food, clean water, and healthcare. This devastation rarely remains contained within national borders. Millions are driven from their homes as refugees, seeking safety and security in neighboring regions or farther abroad. The United Nations estimates that over 100 million people are currently displaced worldwide, a staggering testament to the scale of humanitarian need. One of the devastating humanitarian consequences is the collapse of health systems. In armed conflict zones, hospitals and clinics are often targeted or caught in crossfire, and medical supplies run dangerously low. Outbreaks of disease, preventable or treatable in peaceful settings, can prove deadly, especially among children and vulnerable populations. Malnutrition rapidly becomes widespread when harvests are disrupted and food deliveries are blocked by fighting. Education, too, suffers, as children are pulled from classrooms for their safety or because their schools have been destroyed. Humanitarian organizations respond by trying to deliver food, shelter, medical care, and other vital support. Yet providing aid in active conflict zones is fraught with risk. Aid workers themselves are exposed to violence, kidnapping, or arrest. Humanitarian convoys can be blocked deliberately as a tactic of war, worsening the suffering of civilian populations. The principle of humanitarian neutrality, that assistance should go to everyone in need regardless of side, remains foundational but is often challenged on the ground. Beyond armed conflict, humanitarian crises may also stem from natural disasters, epidemics, or slow-onset emergencies like drought and famine. However, these are rarely purely natural. Vulnerability often results from poverty, weak governance, or unresolved conflicts that have eroded community resilience. For example, a powerful earthquake in a stable country may cause limited harm compared to a similar event in a region where infrastructure is neglected and emergency response is hampered by ongoing conflict. The impact of these crises lingers long after headlines and global attention have moved on. Trauma and loss touch generations, affecting mental health and social cohesion for years to come. Economies are shattered, institutions weakened or destroyed, and the social contract between citizens and their government profoundly undermined. Rebuilding is a daunting challenge, requiring not only financial resources, but also deep reconciliation and the rebuilding of trust. Efforts to resolve conflicts and mitigate humanitarian crises take many forms. Diplomacy and negotiation, peacekeeping operations, and transitional justice systems all play a part. International organizations, such as the United Nations, along with governments and non-governmental organizations, work to mediate ceasefires, deliver aid, and provide safe passage for those in harm's way. Peace-building efforts aim to address root causes by promoting inclusive governance, economic opportunity, and dialogue among divided communities. The role of the global community is essential. International humanitarian law, including the Geneva Conventions, sets out key obligations to protect civilians in times of war, prohibit targeting of medical facilities, and ensure the humane treatment of prisoners. Yet enforcement remains a struggle, especially when powerful actors are involved or when the international community is divided over the legitimacy of a particular cause. Another critical element is the empowerment of affected people themselves. Survivors of conflict and disaster often demonstrate remarkable resilience, organizing community support networks and helping each other rebuild. Humanitarian responses that involve local voices, forging partnerships rather than imposing solutions, are more likely to succeed in both the short and long term. Yet amid these immense challenges, stories of hope frequently emerge. In war-torn cities, communities pull together to create safe spaces for children, maintain essential services, or simply look after each other. Warring factions sometimes set aside differences to allow humanitarian corridors or negotiate access for vaccines and food. Those displaced by violence, though scarred by loss, often show extraordinary determination to start anew, contribute to host communities, and advocate for peace. The causes and consequences of conflicts and humanitarian crises are undeniably complex. Solutions are rarely simple or quick. They demand sustained attention, empathy, and investment from the entire global community. They require commitment not only to immediate relief, but to longer-term peace-building and prevention, addressing root causes, promoting justice, and ensuring that no one is left behind. Ultimately, reducing the frequency and impact of such crises rests on the recognition of our shared humanity. It calls for leaders who seek reconciliation rather than division, and for societies that value inclusion, cooperation, and the protection of the most vulnerable. The world has made remarkable progress before, rebuilding after world wars, ending apartheid, containing pandemics, and it can do so again. Each conflict resolved, each humanitarian disaster met with compassion and resolve, brings us closer to a future where the tragedies of the past need not be repeated. As the Gaza conflict escalates, the humanitarian crisis has deepened dramatically. Daily life for civilians has become a struggle for survival amid relentless bombardment, disrupted supply lines, and widespread destruction of homes and vital infrastructure. Hospitals operate under immense strain, often lacking medicine and clean water, while families face displacement and uncertainty. International calls for a ceasefire and urgent humanitarian access grow louder, reflecting the global recognition of the profound suffering and the urgent need for a peaceful resolution. In Ukraine, the war continues to inflict immense suffering, with millions of civilians caught in the crossfire. Cities are battered by relentless attacks that disrupt daily life and uproot families from their homes. Critical infrastructure, including hospitals, power stations, and schools, faces repeated destruction, deepening the humanitarian crisis. International organizations strive to deliver aid amidst dangerous conditions, while local communities demonstrate extraordinary resilience. The conflict underscores the urgent need for dialogue, solidarity, and a durable peace to end the suffering. The crisis in Yemen stands as one of the world's most devastating humanitarian emergencies. Years of conflict have resulted in widespread displacement, economic collapse, and acute shortages of food, clean water, and medical care. More than 2/3 of the population require humanitarian assistance, while children face severe malnutrition and limited access to education. Despite ongoing challenges and complex political dynamics, local and international organizations continue to work tirelessly, bringing life-saving aid and advocating for sustainable peace and reconciliation.